I want you to imagine you enter a large house or a castle. You walk into the entrance and then down a long, elegant hallway, and you peer in some of the doorways as you pass. You see a den, a study, a sunroom, and eventually at the end of the hallway, you enter into a large, ornate room with vaulted ceiling, filled with everything you've been looking for in life. Let's say the magic, the spark has gone out of your life, and you see in this room the spark that you've lost. Or maybe you're lonely. There in this room, you see the key to unlocking all the connection, friendship, and intimacy that you've been looking for. Or maybe you're struggling financially. In this room are all the resources that you need. Whatever your condition, the treasure you've been searching for is found in this great room. But standing in front of you is a powerful, towering figure, fully armed, ready to attack if you try to take the treasure. In Mark chapter 3, verse 27, Jesus says, "No one can enter a powerful person's house without first tying them up and binding them. Then you can plunder the powerful person's house and take the treasure." Now, what does Jesus mean by this? Well, let's read a little earlier on for some context. If we go back to verse 21, we read this. When his family heard about what Jesus was doing and saying, they went to take charge of him, for they said, "He is out of his mind." And then the teachers of the law who came down from Jerusalem said, "He is possessed by Beelzebub. He is possessed by the devil, and that's how he is driving out demons." You see, Jesus was disrupting power and authority, and those powers are reacting. The two pillars of communal authority in ancient Israel were the family clan and the state, the Sanhedrin. And those two powers worked together to domesticate people under the status quo. And in this passage, we see both the authority of the clan and the state attempting to contain Jesus because he is disrupting the status quo and challenging conventional forms of authority. Now we read here that Jesus' family believes he has lost his mind with the way he's acting and the things he's preaching and teaching. So they try to come and take charge of him, exert power and authority over him. But Jesus disregards their authority, which is far more scandalous than us 21st century folks can really appreciate. In fact, later on we read when his mother and brothers come to see him again, he says, "Who is my mother? Who are my brothers?" This was as direct a challenge to family clan authority as Jesus could make. Jesus was revealing, well, a number of things, but in part, he was revealing that in the kingdom of God, in the divine domain, authority looks different and family looks different. I mean, our family is everyone who lives in the divine domain. And kinship, well, we have kinship with every human being, including our enemies, including the people we despise and including the people who despise us. Next, we read of the state coming to constrain Jesus. The scribes and the teachers of the law were legal authorities. They served as government officials. They were experts in judicial procedures. They aided in the enforcement of Jewish law and custom, and some were part of the governing class in the Sanhedrin. Mark says the teachers of the law had come down from Jerusalem, which is the seat of power in Israel. And they are legal authorities on a mission to discredit Jesus and to constrain him and his disruptive message. They do this by accusing him of being in league with the devil. Now, this is an age-old tactic that threatened leaders use, even today. The tactic is this: to neutralize the opposition by identifying them with evil. Today, political leaders would probably use the term terrorist. When you label a group or a person as a terrorist, you've basically called them the devil. You've discredited and constrained that group or person. And that is what the state what these teachers of the law are doing here with Jesus. Now, what is curious is how Jesus responds to these accusations. He says, no one can enter a powerful person's house without first tying them and binding them up. Then you can plunder the powerful person's house and take the treasure. Jesus refers to a criminal act, breaking into someone's house and physically binding the owner of the house in order to steal the treasure. I mean, ponder Jesus' words here. Curious to say the least. I mean, not many Mennonite pastors would use that analogy to describe the work of Christ, but here in this passage, this is exactly how Jesus is describing his own work. Even more interesting is that this criminal breaking and entering metaphor of comparing Christ to a thief in the night was one of the most enduring metaphors in the early church. It's referenced 5 more times in the New Testament. Now you're probably thinking this is all fascinating, but what does it mean? What is Jesus saying here? Well, here's the context in a nutshell. Jesus is a revolutionary confronting power and authority, and the 2 main pillars of authority in Jesus' society are fighting back. They're trying to constrain him. But Jesus goes deeper here. He's identifying the true power and authority underlying all the systems of power and authority on earth is the spirit of the adversary. The real power, the true enemy to human liberty and well-being is spiritual, Jesus is saying. It's not political or social or economic. It's spiritual. It's the adversarial spirit Jesus is really talking about here. This is why later on in the story, Jesus says that the only unforgivable sin is being adversarial to divine spirit. Jesus didn't come to fight the scribes or the Pharisees or the priests or his clan. He came to defeat the adversarial spirit. And in this passage, he's giving an analogy for the fight that he has come to win. He says he is like a person who breaks into a powerful person's house, binding up the powerful person and plundering their house. Now, this is important to the analogy. Jesus isn't breaking in to steal treasure that belongs to the adversarial spirit. Jesus is breaking in and taking back what the adversary stole from humanity. Now, Jesus' teaching here on power has profound social and political, economic, and religious implications. But there are many others who are called and equipped to speak to these dynamics far better than I. Where I've been called and equipped to speak is how this plays out in our lives as individuals. So I want to go back to the great hall that I had you imagine at the beginning of this message with the daunting power standing guard. Now, on one level, this inner chamber, this great room, is your innermost being. That treasure is yours. Everything you've been looking for, everything you need is within your inner chamber. But there is this daunting power guarding it from you, the adversarial spirit. The spirit that is adverse to divine spirit and adverse to your liberation. Now, what humans truly want is to liberate the true self, that inner child, that magic spark of life that brings a sense of wonder, freeing us to just enjoy life, to see the beauty and take pleasure in existence and to feel joy and gratitude. I mean, what human beings want is peace. We want hope. We want things to look forward to. We want to feel like we belong. We want to feel connected. We want to feel seen, known, and understood. We want freedom, not to do whatever we want, but to enjoy what is without our perceived lack that hinders our enjoyment of what is. A wise friend once asked me when I feel at peace, when I feel fully alive. And I said, well, when I'm on my kayak on a peaceful river or lake, or when I'm hiking on top of a beautiful mountain trail. That's when I feel peace. That's when I feel fully alive and fulfilled. And he laughed. And he said, okay, so when conditions are perfect, that is when you feel peace. That's when you feel fully alive. Well, good for you, Troy. So does everybody. If you and I need conditions to be perfect to enjoy the moment, then we are not free. You are constrained and imprisoned by external factors beyond your control. You are imprisoned by the illusion of perfection, enslaved to continually look to where the grass is always greener on the other side. The core Christian message is this: all the treasure we seek is right here, right now. The kingdom of God, the divine domain, is available right here, right now. And when you find and live in the kingdom of God, in the divine domain, Jesus says all the things that you are seeking will be added unto you. All the treasure that you are seeking, you will find. But Jesus also says that there is this daunting power preventing us from accessing the treasure that is available right here, right now. He says, until you bind up this daunting power, you cannot take the treasure that actually rightfully belongs to you. So how do you bind up this daunting power? Well, first you need to identify it. Name it. What is it that holds power in your life? What is it that holds the most power in your life? True transformation in life requires power to be identified and managed. Society and culture will not change, not really, until we identify the true powers in our society and culture and learn to manage them. The same is true in churches. Churches are infamous for saying they want to change, but never really changing. Why? Why does this happen? Well, because until the true holders of power are identified and managed, nothing will really change. And the same is true in our own lives. People try to change. They focus on losing weight or following their passion or becoming more popular or getting more education or making the right connections or getting that dream house, whatever it is. But in the end, nothing really changes. Not really. Not until the powers in your life are identified and managed. I can't tell you how many people have told me after they have found that dream job or wealth or the perfect romantic partner or fame that they still haven't found what they're looking for. We will not find the treasure we're seeking until we identify the power within and learn to manage it. So what are the great holders of power in your life? How does this daunting power, the adversarial spirit, manifest in your life? Well, for most people, I think it's fear. I think there's a reason the first message a messenger of God says to people addresses their fear. Do not be afraid. Fear not. Because until you identify and manage your fear, the rest of God's message won't really bring transformation or change. I think one of the primary manifestations of the adversarial spirit in our lives is fear. It can be the fear of not belonging or fitting in, the fear of missing out, the fear of not really mattering, of not being important or feeling significant, your fear of not having a voice, your fear of failure, fear of rejection, or the fear of being unnoticed or unloved, your fear of losing control, or your fear of change, or your fear that you can't change. Divine Spirit is teaching me that I need to identify the daunting power within me that is preventing me from accessing the true treasure in life. And it often manifests as fear. Fear that I will never accomplish what I wanted to accomplish in life. The fear that I will never be and do all that I had hoped to be and do. Much of our fear is rooted in childhood wounds. That's where a tremendous amount of our power is bound. But instead, we often focus out there. It's easy to identify the daunting power out there, whether it's the government or the lockdown, the coronavirus, the people refusing to wear masks, conservatives, liberals, your ex-wife or husband, absent or abusive parent, an overbearing boss, the systemic injustice in our society, the ridiculous housing market. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for identifying and confronting the daunting powers out there. But you will never find the treasure you are seeking, not without identifying and binding the daunting power in here. The Christian message is this. 1, Christ is more powerful than any daunting power on earth, including the ones within us. 2, this all-powerful Christ is with you always and within you. 3, if we let the Spirit of Christ finish his work within us, the Spirit will bind the daunting powers within us and give us access to the true treasure that we seek. Something I see in people of great faith is that they identify with the Spirit of Christ within them. They live in awareness of the power of Christ within them. And they recognize that Christ in you is more powerful than anything else within you. And this attitude, this awareness allows the Spirit of Christ to bind the daunting power within them. And as a result, they find extraordinary treasure in ordinary life. Most of these people I'm talking about lack social power or wealth or popularity or privilege, yet they have this rare access to peace and joy and hope and freedom and love and fulfillment and that spark, that sense of magic, that ability to enjoy and feel the pleasure and beauty of existence, even in imperfect conditions. Until the daunting power is bound, you cannot access the treasure that it guards.